Okay, hello there. I'm Melanie McKibbin from Action Coach, and I'm very excited to have Mike Ford from Project Leadership with us today. How are you today, Mike?
I'm good, Melanie. Very good. Looking forward to this.
Yes, likewise. So I think we'll get straight into it. I would love to know what you do, how long you've been doing it, and anything to go along with who Mike Ford and Project Leadership is.
Okay. Well, I'm a chartered civil engineer by profession. I've been in the construction game for about 30 odd years, leading mega projects both in Australia and overseas. And after spending about 4.5 years in the Middle East, came back to Adelaide in 2011 and had a look at my network and what was going on. And I thought, well, why not set up my own business? So I did. So since 2011, Project Leadership has been going on. Started off doing a lot of project management work for customers and clients, but also doing some business advisory stuff. And I also do a lot of leadership facilitation work that I got involved with really by accident, but it was something that I really enjoyed doing. So at the moment, I'm doing a lot of advisory stuff, also doing a lot of lobbying with government as well, because coming from the construction industry, it certainly is time for change, and it's time for I want to leave a bit of a legacy, and then hopefully with all the lessons that I've learned is help businesses see that we need to change to make people survive. And also moving forward into the governance area as well as something else I'm very interested in. But Project Leadership is here to help people and to mentor businesses and listen to what their concerns are and facilitate change in the industry. It's going to take a while because this is an industry that's been going around for many, many years, but it needs to change.
Wow, that's really exciting. Sounds like you've got a really big why for what you do and passion around what you do.
Yeah, I learned that off who's that guy? That's Danasek. I think we said the most important word is why. Why do we do anything? And that's certainly how I start my leadership courses. Why are you an engineer? Why do you want to be a leader? Why do we exist? Why do we want to facilitate change? Why do we keep doing the same things and expect a different outcome, which is a definition of insanity? So yeah, why is very important.
Yeah, ask lots of questions.
Yep, no such thing as a dumb question.
Oh, no, absolutely not. Absolutely not. So you mentioned government and you've mentioned the industry you work with. Who are your best clients? Like who do you work with? Who's your ideal client that you love working with?
Well, it's fairly widespread, but certainly the best clients I've had have been government. In terms of them embracing really what I'm all about. But I've also worked with multinational companies as well. But they tend to be, when they start seeing how, well, why are you accepting this sort of behavior? Why don't we try to change something? Some of them go along with the journey. Others are very resistant to the journey. So you tend to find a lot of maybe a bit of suspicion there and what have you as to what the outcomes are until they start seeing the benefits. Whereas with government, they accept, well, some government departments accept that there is a need for change. Yep. But certainly some of the clients I'm working with now are probably going to help me to facilitate this change. And these are people that work in collaborative contracting and a few other areas that certainly I'm passionate about.
And change is such a big thing. I would imagine you get a lot of, are you hitting a lot of mindset, I don't want to say issues, but perhaps challenges? Because I know when a lot of people do find change a challenge from time to time.
That's the most difficult thing to overcome, because you're not just you're trying to change culture, and you got to start changing culture by changing mindset. And that's the most difficult thing, because certainly in the construction industry, people are very, very much entrenched. And one of the benefits I got in the Middle East when I was over there, we were on a mega project that had to be finished in 2 years, and it was going to be a huge $20 billion US multi-function area, mixed residential business area halfway between Abu Dhabi and Dubai in the UAE. We had 2 years to do it. Now, there could be no procrastination. You had a blank piece of paper and off we went. And that we found that the locals, I was working for a UK-based company, the locals seemed to assimilate more with the Aussie way of yes, we can, rather than the English mentality, which is all, hang on a minute. So that emboldened to me that it can happen. It can happen, but you've got to start with the right mindset. If your mindset is straight away resistant, you're going to stay resistant. And I've got a certain way with this collaborative contracting with some government departments where I've got a certain way in, and then suddenly the doors slammed and said, no, we don't need that because we don't want to change. We don't want to change. That's their mindset. So that mindset will just enable them to stagnate.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's why it's so important that we're always learning. We always are educating ourselves, reading books, listening to podcasts and interviews similar to what we're doing now to learn, even having conversations with other business owners, because we then become stagnant if we stop learning, and that goes straight into our business. Exactly.
Because I mean, I've got a government official actually saying in a podcast similar to this, that you can put forward your innovative solutions, but we won't listen to them because we don't want to innovate because we're scared it's going to fail. And that sort of mindset's crazy because, as you know, learning and failing by your experiences is another way of learning. Absolutely. And then you pick up the pieces and you learn from it and you move forward. Lessons learned is another important thing in this whole process as well, is that you've got to learn from your previous behaviours and get on with it. People that don't want to innovate or don't want to change are just going to stagnate. So yeah, you've got to have that mindset right from the beginning, but changing that mindset, that's the hard part.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So while we talking about change, I'd love to hear how the pandemic and COVID impacted your business, your clients. What kind of change did you see that needed to happen in your industry? And if any of those have actually been implemented moving forward?
Well, actually, COVID helped me a lot in terms of the way I certainly conduct myself in my business, because when COVID first started, I was involved in the bushfire cleanup over on Kangaroo Island.
Right.
So I was right in the middle of this confined area doing this job for the government, and suddenly all the interaction that I was meant to get stopped. So I had to deal and manage the contractors that we had there, as well as the people who were affected by the bushfire. So what I call the social engineering. We had to do all that, start from with a blank piece of paper through COVID, because we still had to continue with the cleanup, because my rationale with that cleanup was we had to get it finished as quickly as we possibly could before winter set in, because this is people's livelihoods that we were dealing with. So it worked ideally for me in what I proposed, which is all about value procurement.
Yep.
So you don't keep on running to the tender board to get procurement. You actually benchmark it. And I had 4 local contractors and 3 contractors on the mainland involved in this cleanup. So we were able to work together as a team, and a lot of the communication was done like we're doing now on Teams back to the government. But basically it enabled me to do all this work very well unfettered, even though I had the probity and the resilient, all the right information behind me to back it all up. And it enabled me to do it a lot quicker without a lot of influence. But it was also, what helped with that though was trust.
Yeah.
Obviously the government trusted what I was doing, the locals trusted what I was doing, and the contractors trusted what I was doing. So COVID enabled me to show that value procurement can work. And it helped people see the way my inclusive management style or leadership style, where I just let these guys, they had to get on with it, because if they stuffed up, I would hear about it. And we were able to do the job. We finished it within about 6 weeks. We cleaned up about 200 properties in that time. Wow. Way ahead of time. And I was told well within budget as well. And so to a degree, COVID helped me, and it's helped me move forward. I mean, obviously, no longer having face-to-face meetings has been a bit of a hurdle, but it's enabled me to sort of broaden my client base as a result of that.
Absolutely. And how has stepping away from that kind of face-to-face interaction, or the amount of face-to-face interaction that you were having prior to COVID, how has that impacted? What ways has it impacted your business?
Probably not a great deal, because a lot of the meetings were generally just one-to-one meetings anyway, coffees and all this sort of stuff. So a lot of that really hasn't changed. a lot of the committees and in some of the other things I was involved with, or even during this cleanup when you're dealing with multiple people, that was a lot more difficult because obviously a lot of what you're doing there, you're reading the room, and that was very difficult in that sort of sense, especially when you're working in a project management environment. So one-on-one, it was fine, but working with a group when you're not being able to read the room was a bit difficult.
Yeah. Yeah, it does kind of have that reading of the room. That's a really good point. There's because you can only see so much, can't you?
That's right. That's right. You don't know what they're looking at or what they're reading or where they're going with anything. So yeah, it makes it a bit difficult. But generally, like I said, COVID, if anything, it enhanced my the clients seeing the way that I'm able to perform, which is basically with untethered, but with probity and rigorous governance behind it as well. But yeah, it enabled people like me who much prefer to probably work individually, but can also work as part of a team where you've got that versatility. It helped with that regard.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I didn't get down with COVID. I only got COVID a couple of weeks ago. So
did I.
I felt like I was missing out.
I've had it twice now. Left New South Wales running away from it. I've had it twice in South Australia. Oh, it's everywhere. Well, cool. So, and you also mentioned that COVID has actually expanded your reach with new clients. Tell me, how has that come about?
Well, that's really happened with the contractors that I was working with, as well as with government as well. I mean, because I was working with one government agency and obviously that got moved around to a number of different government agencies. So I was able to, and I'm also able to use that example about value procurement to also show, to tell people that we can make this happen. Because if we were doing it the traditional way, we'd still be doing the cleanup now. So you had to have this value procurement. So it's a way of channeling that and showing people how it can be done. So using that, the value procurement, the collaborative contracting, and this other thing which I'm also pushing, which is like integrated project delivery, all these things that facilitate change. I'm able to use that as an example of how we can make change and it can work. Because I had a lot of high-level government people behind me who were helping me to get through the bureaucracy, basically, to enable it to happen, because we're all of the same opinion. We had to get it done quickly. The only way to get it done quickly was to have a rigorous approach behind what we were doing.
Yep. Awesome. So tell me, as a business owner, what has been your biggest learning?
Dealing with people at different levels. I'd say, dealing with different types of people, reading the room with a lot of people. I think dealing with people with different agendas as well. I mean, I've learned very early on in the pieces to pick those that have got the vested self-interest, that are more interested in themselves than actually doing something. So I think being able to read that, getting through the levels of suspicion that people might have about what your motives could be all about, because they think it's all about the dollar, whereas it's not necessarily about that and the benefits that you can give. But it's dealing with different people at different certain levels, and that's why I said out of that I've got a lot of people that are repeat clients. I've also got a lot of people who I never work with again because of that. Because you need to develop trust, and trust is all about credibility and reliability, and less about yourself. So those people that are forming suspicions or whatever, I use the Jack Welch 20-70-10 rule. And they're part of the 10% that I'll never work with again, despite the fact that they might keep coming back to me.
I love that. That's something that, as a coach, I work with a lot of my clients, and I imagine you would probably cover this with your leadership as well, of identifying your A, B, C, and D clients, and identifying who is your ideal client, who do you want to work with, and who you don't want to work with.
Yeah. Exactly. And some of them take a lot of time. Like there's one particular client I'm working with now. I'd been working in touch with them over 12, 18 months. And it's only recently that we've developed a business relationship. And that's just the way things happen. And the business side of it really happened by accident. But that was purely because we trusted each other.
Yeah.
We were listening to what we were saying. Then all of a sudden we developed, there was a synergy that we could work on.
Yeah.
And away we go.
Love it.
It's certainly working again, and that's brought into play people that I worked with in the Middle East 10 years ago that I've still kept in touch with, and because we've always had a trusting relationship. Some of those guys have, left the UAE and came back to Australia, even though they were English. They came back here because they could see the benefits here. So we've always kept in touch. So yeah, those people, they're very much on the 20% rule.
Yeah.
But there's a few now starting to get into the 10% rule.
I love it. We need boundaries. Now, my favorite question is, if you could go back in time, what is one piece of advice that you give yourself when first starting out in business? Maybe
don't be too pushy.
Oh, okay.
Let it all happen rather than sort of, and also maybe don't think that everybody's thinking the same as you.
Mm.
And that's read the room. I think that it was actually putting together my leadership workshop, which, like I said, happened by accident. That enabled me to sort of see that, that's really what you need to do. Not everybody's interested in maybe what you're saying. You need to really pick and choose as to what people want to hear. But I'd say reading the room is the most important one.
Yeah.
And I'm certainly different now than what I was at the start, because I think at the start, as well as after working in the Middle East, where you think everything just sort of happens, you've really got to work hard at it. You've got to work very hard at it and developing those relationships. But yeah, that's fine. It's all part of the learning experience.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think also when we start business, you want to get the business, you want to get things moving, and it's a different mindset as you kind of settle into it.
Yeah. Because like initially, the first job I got was working on a major project here. And it worked really hard to get one client, and eventually I got taken over by another client who wanted me to come and work for them. And but then since then, the relationship with that client dissolved because of the credibility and the suspicion that really came from their side of things, because they took a punt on some strategies that I put forward, and it worked in their favour, but I don't think they wanted to go down that path again. Because this is people that they're quite happy to stand there and get kicked around by the big contractors, and I gave them the ammunition to be able to push back.
Oh, I love that. I love hearing that. Mike, thank you so much for your time today and sharing a bit of your story. I'm sure there are business owners out there that they're going to be able to take a piece of your story and help them along the way. And I thank you for your abundance in your time and sharing your story. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you. And anybody who's interested to have a chat further and get further insights, I may even let out a few names, who knows? But that's great. Thank you, Melanie. Thank you very much.
It's my absolute pleasure. Thanks.